When you're speaking English and you find yourself trying to translate from your native language back to English, then you're on the wrong side of the track towards progress, because that's not going to make you fluent in English. Why? Because you're just speaking your native language, but in a different pattern with different words and with different sentences. Translating in your head seems like you're just being fluent, you're being fast and quick in responding and speaking in English. But you don't understand that you're actually slowing the process of coming up with sentences. You're actually slowing the process of becoming fluent in English. Because, like I told you before, you're just speaking your native language, but with different words, different sentences. And it's a big problem, and it's probably one of the reasons why people do not get fluent in English. And if you're watching this video, you're probably somebody who is constantly trying to translate from your native language back to English every time you try to speak in English. And I'm telling you that you're being wrong. What's actually going to happen every time you translate a word or a sentence from your native language back to English before speaking is that every time you try to speak English, you go through some steps. Like you try to, before speaking, before saying a sentence, you try to convert that sentence from your native language back to English. And that's going to take some time. That's called a step. You take a step backwards and then you try to translate. That's going to take you some time, probably some seconds. And for some people, even it's going to take them some moments, some minutes to convert that sentence from their native language back to English. So that shows how slow you are, how kind of a lazy speaker you are whenever you try to speak English. So you don't want to be like that. Like a lot of people, when they're trying to learn English, the general probably kind of a goal or purpose is that they want to be fluent, fast, quick in responding in English. In speaking in English, everybody wants to be fluent. So you don't want to be lazy, you don't want to be slow whenever you try to respond in English. You don't want to take some seconds, some minutes before responding to a question in English. And that's going to kind of slow you down. Look at how it's going to impact your speaking overall. One of the downsides of translating from your native language back to English, is that you're going to always be slow. You're going to always be thinking in your head before saying a word or a sentence in English. Translating in your head also creates a natural pattern of speech, which means every time you try to translate from your native language back to English, you're actually doing it in a very unnatural way. Why? Because languages do not form sentences in the same way. They do not form ideas, sentences, anything in the same way, because it's different. So suppose you're trying to translate from your native language, probably it's Russian, and you're trying to translate it into English. That's going to be super unnatural. Even though the grammar is perfect, your grammar is correct in terms of grammatical points and all of that, but when it comes to natural rhythm, natural pause and intonation and all of that, it's going to always be awkward every time you try to translate from your native language directly to English. So that's always going to be unnatural. That's always going to be awkward. People are going to think, oh, this guy is completely a very strange English speaker. He is point blank a very unnatural English speaker. So you don't want to be like that, because a lot of people, as far as I'm concerned, they want to be natural, fluent, and they want to abide by the rules of English, which is being natural, which is being kind of looking the same whenever you try to speak like a native English speaker, right? So you don't want to fall into that trap of translating, because that's going to make you feel unnatural. That's going to make you feel stand out from the rest of the people who are speaking English naturally. So to stop translating in your head, there are two practical tips that you can just follow in order to get rid of this habit of translating in your head and trying to be natural and being fluent and being point blank direct every time you try to speak English. Implement these two tips that I'm going to give you in this video, and you're going to be eliminating this problem of translation in your head before you speak English. So the first step to actually stop translating in your head and actually speak directly in English is to explain yourself in simple English words. What that means is every time you try to speak English, probably you come across a situation where you have to explain yourself, and the situation is very sophisticated and complex. Like you have to explain yourself from the depth of your heart, and your mind goes blank, you're overwhelmed, you don't know how to say that word, that sentence in English, and all of these feelings get over you, and you somehow get overwhelmed, and you like freeze, your mind goes blank, you freeze completely, right? So in that situation, your mind naturally relies on trying to translate from your native language into English. Like it tries to make that sentence first in your native language before translating it into English and then speaking it, right? So in those situations, don't panic, stop, just don't freeze. Try to explain yourself in simple English words, using simple English words, expressions, whatever you know. For example, let's say you're trying to explain your mood, your feeling to somebody, and you don't know how to say that certain word that belongs to that certain kind of feeling in English, and your mind is thinking, what do I have to say? I don't know the word. I'm not sure. what to say next. Like in those situations when you get freezed, don't try to say that, translate that sentence in your head in your native language before speaking it. Just try to speak English using simple words. It doesn't have to be advanced words or even some kind of words that will make people think you're actually an advanced English speaker. No, don't think like that, because nobody is a perfect English speaker. Everybody has flaws, mistakes, and all the problems. So what you want to do is actually use those simple words. Use whatever you know to explain yourself. Like whatever in your ability, just use it. Whatever word you have in your head, whatever vocabulary you have in your mind, it's okay. No matter how basic, no matter how natural that vocabulary is, just use it to explain yourself. Just be able to say that word in English or explain yourself in English without really relying on translating in your head, right? That's how you can become a very active speaker of English. Like that's how native English speakers speak English. Why? Because you can see them. They're speaking English. They don't take minutes to think before speaking. They don't pause, just point blank start speaking and do the thing that they want to do, right? So you want to be like that. You want to. They are our role model for learning English, right? Because they're the owners of language. They know how to speak it. They know how to express themselves. So you want to match their way of speaking. So if you want to match how native English speakers speak English, or even if you want to match how a successful speaker would speak English as their non-native language or probably second or third language, you want to make sure to speak English point blank actively without translating in your head. So the second step that you can actually use to stop translating in your head is to actually describe a word if you do not know the meaning of it. What that means is sometimes we come across words that we don't know in English. Some words are really strange. We don't know those words, and it's completely understandable because English is our non-native language and it's really understandable, and it's fine to not be able to understand some words. So in those situations, if you're a successful English speaker, what you actually do is you try to explain that word using the words that you already have in English. For example, let's say you don't know the meaning of the word in phone in the middle of a conversation and you forget the meaning of the word because you probably didn't know it before, or even you probably forgot that word in that situation, in that moment, right away. So what you do at that moment, at that point, is a game changer. Like, how do you think? How do you decide to do? What do you decide to do in that situation? So the actual successful speaker of English, I think, what they do is they try to speak the meaning of the word, convey that meaning of the word to their listeners using the other words that they have. Let's say you're trying to explain yourself and you forget the meaning of the word phone, right? Like, let's say your cell phone, you forget the meaning of that word, that vocabulary in English. And then you try to explain yourself using the other words that you have. For example, let's say I want to have that device that people use to call each other, text each other, or probably play games and do all the other activities that they do, use Instagram, TikTok, and all of that. You say it like that. Do you see how you can actually form that sentence? How you can actually say the meaning of that word phone using the other words that you have in English? That's actually thinking in English. That's actually successfully thinking in English. And that's how I think people become fluent in English. And the reason why native English speakers speak this much fluently is because they're constantly thinking in English in this way. They're not thinking probably in a different language, finding a way to find probably the meaning of some words in other languages, or probably translate some words or some sentences in another language and then bring that language or bring that sentence into English by translating it. They don't do these things. They actually come up right away with English. They do this over and over, and that's why they're fluent, they're fast. So if you're somebody who is constantly struggling with this problem of translation in your head, and you can't just get rid of this thing of translating in your head, and you keep constantly translating from your native language back to English, which is really a headache, a problem that you're having. If you're having these problems, these two tips could really help you get over these problems. They practically help you try to be active in eliminating these habits, in trying to get rid of these habits. Because these habits, like I told you, they're headaches, they're problems. They actually stop you from becoming fluent and natural in English. So if you're trying to become natural, make sure that you're actually working towards eliminating this habit of translation in your head. If you do that, if you get rid of this translating thing from your mind, then I think you're on the right side of the track towards becoming fluent in English, just like native English speakers, because this is what they do. This is what they do. They do not do anything special to become fluent, right? They didn't do anything special. They just thought in English. They just spoke English no matter what. That was the only choice they had. Why? Because they don't have any other language to convey their message to their friends, family, to their probably colleagues, and all of that. They have to speak in English. So if you're putting yourself in situations where you have to speak English and you have no other choice except to speak English, then you will become fluent in English just as they became fluent in English, native English speakers, because they had to do it and they became fluent in English using English alone.